Hello and welcome back to the Busby Way Podcasts. I'm joined here by Liam. How are you doing, Liam?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you, Kai?
Yeah, I'm all right, Tom, mate. And a familiar face that we haven't seen for a while. Nathan is back with us. How are you doing, Nathan? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing well, mate. I'm back from the wilderness. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I think last time we saw you was was it after the Europa League? Was that when?
Yeah, I think last time you
was.
saw me. Yeah, last time you saw me, I was hosting the podcast. So
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, but yeah. So now we're back. We haven't got Chris this week. Chris is busy, but hopefully we'll be back with us next week. Right, where do we start this week's performances? I think I'll start by addressing you, Liam. Actually, I think you put in the group chat when we won in the middle of the week.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
There was a text that went in that group chat that said, "Let's see if we can actually do the double this week and win 2 in a row." And then the weekend came, and we didn't do 2 in a row. But we'll start by talking about that midweek game first, and we'll talk about Villarreal. Because in midweek they won 2-1 with a last gasp goal from Cristiano Ronaldo. But apart from that, I mean, that's probably the only thing to look at positively from that game. Liam, I can see you smiling. What did you make? What did you make of that Villarreal game?
Pretty atrocious. It wasn't a good game in general. I mean, I thought after the first 5 minutes, because obviously we're coming into that game on the back of a bad week where we'd lost to West Ham in the League Cup and to Villa at home late on. And yeah, the Villarreal game, we started sort of quick in the first 5 minutes. We pressed them hard, and Villarreal clearly weren't comfortable with that. And then I think probably for the next 75 minutes, 80 minutes, we just let them pass it around us. And the whole first half was awful. To put it lightly, Danjuma had the low on toast. So all the people who were screaming on social media about wanting the low to start sort of crawl back under the rocks, and all that agenda sort of went, because he might be in a good attacking right back, but he certainly didn't show that all in defensive capability on Wednesday. Maybe a bit of a reality check for him after a couple of good games. Yeah, I mean, the whole game itself was bad. It was really bad. And we something that was frustrating is we were trying to play one in midfield, with one defensive midfielder in the three, rather than having both Fred and McTominay. We obviously played McTominay. That test failed miserably. Villarreal control the game, control possession. They're a really good, experienced European side. If you're not going to rush them, they don't rush. They play at their own pace. You've got good technical players like Danny Parejo. And yeah, it was a real lackluster performance. They obviously scored. Bad defending by us, which has been typical of the last, the whole season, in all honesty. Typically bad defending. And then, yeah, obviously we got a great goal to equalise through Alex Tellez from a Bruno cross, where we didn't expect him to go to Tellez, but he did. And Tellez scored a wonderful goal. I think we tried that last season against West Brom at home when it was Tellez's first league start, I think it was. But he put some in the top tiers. Thankfully, this one went in the bottom corner. And yeah, we thought maybe it would push us on, and it didn't. It didn't seem to push us on until Cavani got subbed on by the time Unai Emery had made 5 substitutions. So they had virtually a new team, or half a new team, and we were fighting on. And, Cavani made a big impact. He was chasing lost causes, making things happen, rushing the defenders. He's doing all the right things. And yeah, thankfully, that was obviously a heart and mouth scare where they had a goal line scramble. That would have been down at my end at the scoreboard end, case down. But yeah, it was a real grindy win where Ronaldo scored late off. We'd had a couple of chances to make it 2-1. And, we were very lucky that Villarreal weren't more clinical in that first half. And I thought, well, maybe sometimes when your team's going through a little bit of a rough patch, a difficult win like that can often push you on to, a few more good results. And yeah, it was an amazing feeling when Ronaldo scored, and obviously inside the ground singing "Viva Ronaldo." But I thought the performance itself was awful. There was no rhythm, or there wasn't much balance in the team again. We seem to be playing the ball persistently out wide and not going through the middle of the pitch, which is obviously a big problem area of the season. And yeah, I mean, we did well to get all 3 points, and we had to. We didn't look like a team that had lost the first group stage game. We looked like a team that had already qualified the way we were playing for the majority of it. And it was a concerning performance, and it did sort of carry over into the weekend's game.
Yeah, and definitely you say there just seemed to be a lack of tempo and a lack of, I don't know what it was, but there was multiple times during the game when I was watching it, I was thinking Paul Pogba was just stood, and there was just seemed to be no movement. It almost seemed like they weren't playing for Ole. I don't know if you two think the same, but I think it seemed to be like they didn't want to run and put the effort in. Do you think that's like I said, Nathan? Do you think that's down to perhaps the players not wanting to play for Ole, or maybe the fact that Ole is tactically inept? Do you think?
I don't know if it's about players not playing for Ole. I think it's just, I think this season in particular now, Ole's obviously got the players that he might have wanted. That he's obviously going to be really tested this time round. I thought while watching the game, it reminded me in a way of the Europa League final United had against Villarreal. It was just slow out of the blocks. You don't know how to sort of start games in a way, and with the Champions League, it's sort of like a cut and throat competition. If you don't start well and you don't sort of get on top of things, you'll really, really be punished. You saw last season when United had similar games against Istanbul, and in particular, say Leipzig away, where United didn't get on the front foot. It will cost you. I think the players, like, you hear sort of positive sort of murmurs and that from the camps that they do sort of trust in Ole. You always hear also reports when United are linked to say potential signings, that you'll hear reports that teammates are trying to encourage other international teammates to come and join. Obviously, that's hearsay. The tactically inept thing, there are times where you sort of do question Ole's tactics. Obviously, we'll talk about the game against Everton in that regard, but it's just, you see of it, like, you don't want to compare it to other teams, but other teams like say Liverpool and City, for example, in those sort of games where you're against sort of weaker on paper opposition, you start on the front foot and you don't let them sort of dictate the play. But no, I don't. I think the players are playing for him, but I still think Ole's like that. There is a case to be made that he might be a bit tactically inept in a way.
Yeah, and again, like you said, we'll talk about the Everton game in a few minutes, but we'll just stick on the Villarreal one. Like Liam mentioned, Cavani looked great when he came on. He seemed to bring the mobility up front, and for me, I don't know why he doesn't play Ronaldo and Cavani more often together, because whenever we've seen them play together, it's brought the best out of both of them. We saw it against Villa when Cavani came on; they looked far better up front when Cavani came on with Ronaldo there. And then, sorry, I just started choking. And then against Villarreal when Cavani came on, he ended up chasing the ball down for Ronaldo's goal. Do you think Cavani perhaps should be playing a bigger part, Liam? Because he seems to be slightly an afterthought at the moment with all his team selections. All right, he got his start against Everton, which was probably deserved based on his midweek performance, but there's a lot of talk of him. I read this morning in Spanish media that he's been rumoured of Real Madrid today, to move in January. Do you think he's someone that we desperately need to keep hold of, given, the circumstances and the mobility he brings from Man United's forward line?
Yeah, I mean, the Rashford and Cavani, the Ronaldo and Cavani stuff, really. I mean, yeah, it's an odd one because I wouldn't think on paper that it would particularly be a good match, but I can see why people would at the same time. I think Cavani and Ronaldo both offer a good aerial threat. I do not like having to see Ronaldo shift out to the left because he's not a left winger anymore. He's 36, not 28. Like, when he was playing left wing for Real Madrid back in like 2010 and 11 and and all that and when it was Bale, Ronaldo, Benzema, etc. But at the same time, we need to ultimately find a way to supply these players, because in the last few games, Ronaldo's gone off soaking in the last two Premier League games against Aston Villa and Everton. Obviously, when he was last here, we weren't ever dropping points to teams like this, and because it was a long time ago. But even his Real Madrid days, Juventus days, he's here to win the title, not to be a side finishing in the top four, which is unfortunately where I think we'll drop into that bracket as a top four finisher again. Because I think there's going to be a bit of pulling teeth until we sort out midfield out. But yeah, I mean the Cavani Ronaldo partnership that people have often spoke about. Yeah, I mean I've got to sort of pose a question: would that ultimately mean a 4-4-2 diamond formation? Is that what that would mean? Do you think?
I think for me personally, I'd play the 4 and then have the 2 holding midfield, because he seems to like them 2 holding midfielders, and then playing the left and right hand side with the 2 strikers. I think personally that might work with United. The only thing is then when Rashford comes back in, it's where do you fit everyone in? Because you'd have McTominay, Bruno, or whoever that holding midfielder is, and Bruno, and then you'd have probably Pogba on the left, Sancho on the right, and then have Cavani and Ronaldo up top, potentially. I don't know whether that would be too attacking. That's another question. You probably need to get another holding midfielder in before you did that. What about you, Nathan? What would you do in that circumstance? Because then you are looking at the issue of trying to squeeze too many attacking players in, and you may leave yourself vulnerable at the back.
Yeah, I don't think the idea is sort of putting Ronaldo on the wing is a good move, because as Liam said, it's like he's 36. He's not exactly an out and out winger anymore like he was back in the day, and obviously I think it'd be a case that if you are playing the 2 up top, you'd have to go sort of a more narrow-minded formation, and considering because of how United play at the minute, how you have Greenwood on the right and say someone like Rashford or Sancho on the left, they like to tuck in narrow, so you're already sort of cutting off the width unless you've got full-backs overlapping. So if you go for a more narrow-minded formation, you're taking out the width even more. I think it might be a case of Cavani, you still use him as an impact sort of thing. Say if you are sort of chasing the game or you need a goal, you go to the 2 up top, you go more attacking. And my worry is that if you do go, say, with a 2 up top, what actually does happen to that midfield, which is already weak enough? Because what do you, like I said, what do you do? Do you go because we see Bruno, someone said this to me before, of talking to people in and out, and they said, maybe you could play Bruno a bit more deeper because he likes to trap back, he likes to sort of come back and whatnot. And I can see the look at Liam's face there. So you don't want your most creative midfielder dropping back, because as an opposition defender, you'll sit there and go, do you know what? Bruno's playing in his own half. Perfect. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I don't know how you do it, but you wouldn't go. I don't think you'll go Ronaldo and Cavani up top. I think you use Cavani more as an impact. If you are changing the game, you go to the 2 up top, go a bit more attacking. If it doesn't work out, doesn't work out, but at least you can say you sort of had a go, sort of thing.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's another player in there as well that came off the bench against Villarreal who actually set up the goal, who's been playing really well recently, Jesse Lingard. Now, Lingard for me is I wasn't a fan. I'm not going to be honest. I wasn't a fan of Lingard. Even at West Ham, I thought it's a one season, but he's coming at United and he actually seemed like he wants to be playing. He's had a goal involvement in every 45 minutes now at United this season, which is incredible, really, when you think of it. The minutes he's coming off the bench. Perhaps did you think he wanted to start against Everton, Liam? Because with a start like that, surely if he's a very creative midfielder that you'd want him to be starting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult one with Jesse, because I'll be honest as well, wasn't a fan of him previously. He went for a real purple patch under Jose Mourinho in the 17-18 campaign around December, January time, where he couldn't stop scoring. I mean, we thought, is this the developed version of him? Is this the player that we're going to start to see on a more regular basis? Because obviously he's still going through his learning period under Van Gaal in 15-16, 16-17 was his, only his second full season at the club where he's really been playing regularly. And then, that season he sort of fired off and did really well, and he come back from the World Cup and he never seemed to quite get his form back. I'm always open for players to prove myself wrong, and to most importantly prove themselves at the biggest stage for our club. Starting against Everton, it's so difficult because he's not really a winger, is he? He's sort of like he's a bit more of an in-behind player who often gets played on the wing, and he does actually create a bit more. It's a strange one. I think maybe if we were playing a bit more of a fluid system, he would have got in. But with the Fred and McTominay pivot, it's hard to sort of, two fairly average players at this present time taking up an extra space that we don't need to, because we don't have one single in their prime defensive midfielder. To be fair, I think the front three that we played, Greenwood, Martial and Cavani, did make sense in different ways. Because Martial, good record against Everton, scored a goal, should have had two. His goal was actually a little bit fortunate, might hit the defender, but sometimes when you're in a goal drought and a barren spell, you need it to go in somehow. And I think that was his first goal in 8 months for United, I think. Which, to be quite honest, is pretty disgraceful considering he started most of last season. But at least that's over now. But then he obviously took a knock or whatever when he got subbed. I didn't have much problems with the lineup against Everton. But the thing is, the question that you pose with Lingard all the time is, where and when does he actually start? What position would you play him in? Who would you bring out? But I guess that's the problem that we have with a lot of players. And I think Van der Beek's also suffering from that. But in a way, it's Donny's in a position where he could play us one of where Fred and McTominay are, and then we could have one sitting midfielder. But with Matic, because he's relatively old now.
What were you going to say there?
You're about to say something else.
Well, I was going to say old aged, but it's not really old aged. Yeah. He's not even 10 years older than me, Matic.
You spun that brilliantly there, by the way.
Yeah, you did well. He saved it. Saved
it there.
Well, what did you expect me to say? Rhymes with tart. Do you know what I mean? It's a case of Matic isn't in his peak years, and we seem to only get 1 year of peak Matic, and then he seemed to do well for his new contract in the 2019-20 season, and then he seems to have, I think Matic is probably the solution for us in that midfield role. But I think we need to somehow manage him rather than having to go for this perilous situation of Fred and McTominay. Because our midfield is just a mess. It's hard to say what should be in what, but I think what I definitely noticed first half against Everton is that Fred and McTominay the ball was being played through them. We were using the middle. I don't know if you like to call it, obviously, like the right wing, left wing. We were using the middle, channel of the pitch.
Yeah.
And whereas in the second half, it just completely went to pot, and it was just we'll pass it out wide, and it's like, well, Man United, we should be playing through a middle. It's not really a big club thing to not use the middle of the pitch at all. It was a bit useless. And we obviously lost a lot of rhythm in the play. Fred should have cleaned out Damari Gray, or at least made sure in the slightest that he wasn't going to run away with that ball. And obviously they scored an equaliser. It was again pretty much Villarreal-esque that second half. No urgency, and it felt inevitable when from a moment Townsend scored that it would finish as a draw. You were just hoping that we could somehow squeeze out an extra few percent to get a win. But, it's just frustrating. Nothing we can do about it. We just got to move on. I think the international break has come on. It's come for us at a good time. It's coming for a good time. Maguire, Rashford's back. Obviously, we've got difficult fixtures. We can always gain some form of we can't really gain confidence through playing and training, but we can all regroup and we can start again. And Leicester away is going to be a big game for us, and we have to really. I can't honestly tell you straight off the bat who we've got like game after game after game. I know we've got Leicester, Liverpool, Atalanta coming up. And
I can tell you, we've got Atlanta, we've got Leicester away, Atlanta at home, Liverpool at home, Tottenham away, Atlanta away, Man City at home, and then Watford away, Villarreal away, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home. That's the run.
Right. So, I mean, you can't really. It's like for anyone out there who's ever played Football Manager, they give you all the hard fixtures at once usually, rather than having a gap and a break and a gap and a break between them. And yeah, it's one hell of a run, run.
Knowing all these sides though, we always seem to go on a period like this where we can't beat. No disrespect, but smaller sides and lower league sides, and then all of a sudden, that's because they sit back against us and they sit with 10 men behind the ball, and you can't break them down. But then when we play a team that comes at us like a Liverpool or a Spurs, we'll be fine, and we can, we're all right because we don't have to break them down. That's the issue. That we saw it so many times with Man City last season. We beat them 3 times last season. City.
Yeah. Did we?
Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it?
Might have been season before.
It was the season before, yeah.
It's COVID football all merges.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Because it's just like, just it seems like it's all been one season.
Yeah.
Once last season, 0-0 at home in the league.
Yeah.
2-0 at their grounds. League Cup. I mean, that's just classic.
I think that's the trouble though. It's like you're talking about how United sort of struggled against the smaller sides, but sort of play well against teams that come at them. If anything, it should technically be the other way around, because obviously the games against the lower sides, so say like the likes of say Everton or this, that, and the other. Those are the teams that realistically, when you look back on the season and say like depends on where you are. Those are the teams you drop points against, but still do cost you. Because also, I think last season was it like the 3-3? Yeah, Sheffield United, a 3-3 against Everton. You got like countless examples where United over the past couple of years drop points against them. But then you see the record against, say, the top 6. It's obviously it's never going to be perfect, because obviously the top 6, every team should sort of beat each other in that little mini league. But relatively speaking, it's sort of a positive record for them. And it's like I say, you need to United needs to find a balance where you sort of go like against a big there's an old saying so like if you pick up a point away at Anfield, but win your home games, that's seen as a relatively sort of a good steading to have. Whereas if you're picking up a point at home against Everton and then potentially losing at Everton, that's not the right way to do it. Do you know what I mean? So do you think
that's down to Ole, Nathan?
I think it also just depends on the players. I think it's kind of like, I think United need to sort of set up better against those sort of teams, but then you sort of think, do they have the players? Well, they do have the players to break them down, but it's just there's a serious sort of unbalance in that central midfield area where you literally you can't do that sort of because Fred and McTominay, you've seen that they're good against Man City is because they don't have the ball. They're not relying on having the ball, so they use that energy to get through the game, closing down this, that, and the other. Whereas against, say, the likes of Everton, you wouldn't trust them to sort of play those little 5-10 yard passes to break up the player or control things in midfield. I mean, because literally 2 days previous, I know United have been heavily linked with Declan Rice, but 2 days previous, Declan Rice had another good performance in the Europa League. I know like we say it's Europa League, but United have been in that competition for the past couple of years. So you can't
We
really,
may end up in it again. May end up in it
remind
again
me.
this year. Yeah.
But you see, it's like that's why like United were linked heavily with, say, the likes of Neves and, say, Declan Rice over the summer, because I was going to mention about Lingard as well, that I think before the season started, I don't think any United fan would have sat there and particularly missed Jesse Lingard if he'd have gone, say, as part of a deal for Declan Rice. And obviously he's now sort of not played his way into the team, but sort of, he's shown that he's willing.
Anyway.
Yeah, he's shown he's willing to fight, which you can always sort of respect from a player. But on the back to what you're saying about Ole, yeah, I don't. I think he just needs to find a way to sort of use what he has at his disposal. Obviously, Liam mentioned about like Matic being the best option in that midfield, and obviously he was going to call him another name, but we'll.
That is ludicrous. No, I wasn't. I've called him many a name at a match day, but
but you can like, so you kind of have to sit there and think, what does Van der Beek maybe have to do to start getting that sort of, maybe just change it up a little bit. You don't have to go Fred and McTominay every game because they perform well against other teams. Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
it did make me laugh how Ollie commented on Van der Beek's chewing gum in midweek after he took a strop, saying, he's been taught well by his dad or by his coach or whatever not to swallow chewing gum, and it's like
it's ridiculous, that, wasn't it? That'd
be his legacy, United. That would be just like, I learned how to chew some Wrigley's properly. It's like, oh well done.
Yeah, Fergie taught me. Fergie taught him how to chew his chewing gum. Yeah,
we've got Team Viewer, a sponsor that does what Van der Beek does, views for Team.
Yeah, well, yeah, on from the bench. Yeah, there was an article I saw this morning, Liam, and I'll go this to you because I know you'll love this one. It's an absolute corker from the Express. If Ollie goes, we are rumoured with Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, I've seen that.
What's
just think of it this way, right? Just think of it this way, right? So you gotta put it into context. All of our fans go, Ollie is so bad. You got Cardiff relegated. Well, Middlesbrough were an established Premier League side, and Southgate got them relegated. Do you know what I mean? It's like Middlesbrough had been in the Premier League since 1997 or whatever. When Southgate took over, it only took him a year or so to get 2 years to get him relegated. It's not exactly the most. Honestly, I mean, my worst nightmare is Southgate or Pochettino being our next manager.
Yeah.
I don't even want another manager. I want Ollie to succeed. Yeah. But my worst nightmare is one of those two. A manager who is basically Pochettino's basically what we are now, where we're in this constant limbo of like we're so close but not making it. And Southgate is just like
well, if you complain about the football that Ollie plays, you do not want Southgate as your manager.
No,
he is like just plays the most dull football. He will stick with Fred and McTominay. Fred and McTominay will be in that too. There'll be the two world midfielders will be there if Southgate's manager at United.
We'll be guaranteed to sign Trippier and all his favourites at England. Next week, we'll be hammering a bid in for Calvin Phillips and Jake Livermore on a free, and it'll be over.
Calvin Phillips. I won't mind Calvin Phillips.
I'd like Calvin Phillips. I just like a functional central midfielder. It's like I said to one of my friends who's a City fan when I was talking, like me and my friends was talking. I went, imagine City, right? And you take out Fernandinho and you take out Gundogan, and then now you have Kevin De Bruyne, Ousmane Dabo, and Joey Barton, and try and win the league with that. I went, it isn't going to happen. I went, you could try a million times over, and it's like Einstein would say. It's like the Einstein thing of you try the same process over and over again, and you get the same results. It's just going to drive you to insanity, And that's essentially what we're going through. We can go on long unbeaten runs, but it's because we have to do that because we've always thrown away silly points.
Yeah, I've asked Liam before in the past few weeks, Nathan, about who he'd want to take over if United did sack Ole. Who would be your preferred choice? Who would you want to come in?
Ideally, I think if you're looking at you got to look at a manager. I think that's got because with all the criticisms of Ole, you've got to say that like when he leaves that job, he's going to leave like that club in a better place than say what the previous managers have left it in. So you're looking for a manager to sort of build on that, and ideally you look at the sort of candidates available because I think because Zidane for me would probably be the one. I know it's an obvious choice, but I think if you look at what sort of who would fit the ethos and who would fit the sort of club going forward, it probably would be Zidane. I agree with Bushy's thoughts on Pochettino because you're basically hiring like the same manager, essentially. Like, well, not the same manager, but you're sort of going like, well, if people complain about Ole, say, bottling like trophies and cup semi-finals, stuff like that, hiring Pochettino is going to be you're literally hiring the same thing what you're blaming Ole for. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Zidane, I think, would be the one. That Ten Hag at Ajax would be an interesting one, but it'd be a case of would he be able to take on, like, no disrespect, I know Ajax are one of the biggest clubs in Europe, like historically. However, would he, like, in terms of the job pressures and that, would he be able to jump from, say Ajax, where he's basically only got to compete with PSV, to the Premier League, where he's got to compete with City, Liverpool, Chelsea, and this, that, and the other. Yeah, Zidane would be the one. I've seen people online say about Conte, and it's like that'll be a bit of a drastic change, I think, because Conte would be the sort of, like, I think it wouldn't be a backward step, but it'd be sort of, I don't think it'd be the right person. It'd be sort of like the right person, wrong job sort of scenario. It's a bit like maybe when Mourinho joined United, like right person, but wrong job sort of scenario. I'd go Zidane because I think obviously he's got that experience of managing at a top club with like elite pressures on him. So I'd go Zidane.
Yeah, well, on that, and he's managed Ronaldo before. He's managed Varane before. He knows how to deal with his egos, which I think was probably why. But we'll go back to Ole and we'll talk about that Everton game a bit more. He was, I know Liam said he was quite happy with the Everton selection, the team selection, but he did face a lot of criticism for it. I mean, there's an international break coming up, and then he dropped Ronaldo. He dropped Pogba. I saw someone say on Twitter, actually, that Van der Beek kicked off in midweek because he didn't get on in the first team. So he brought the first team to Van der Beek, which I saw, which was quite a good tweet. But, yeah, I'll go to you again then, Nathan, because I know Liam's made his thoughts on that selection. What did you make of it? Do you think he probably should have gone a bit stronger against Everton? Do you think he maybe underestimated Benitez's side?
I could understand resting players because I think... I can't remember the specific ruling, but I swear there's a new thing that's out where it's like if a team plays Wednesday night in the Champions League, but it's away from home instead of home, they don't have the lunchtime kickoff. If that makes sense, like I swear there is that rule. Like they were trying to impose a similar ruling this year, or one of it. It might be for away games. I might be wrong on that part, but
right, okay.
But yeah, I can see why you rest players, but I don't think you should have rested as many as he did, if that makes sense. Like you take 2 or 3 out, it doesn't exactly sort of unbalance the team, but you sort of have the likes of Ronaldo on the bench, this, that, and the other, and you sort of it looked a bit. I wouldn't say you underestimated Everton, but you sort of think of it and go, well, Everton had quite a few injuries coming into this. Calvert-Lewin was out, Richarlison was out. So you sort of sit there and go, right, so one of the main threats, say, Damari Gray, who's been like good this season for them, but then you just got to neutralise that and you sort of fine. And obviously, we saw how Fred dealt with Damari Gray, so that's out of the question. Because you know how Benitez is going to set up his sides anyway, so he's going to be a bit like pragmatic with it. He's going to look to pick you off on the counter, but I don't necessarily think that Ole should have rested as many players as he did. And to be fair, that first half performance I thought from United was actually pretty good. It's weird how as soon as the likes of Ronaldo and say Sancho came on, United did concede, but that was obviously through the centre of midfield. But I I don't know how to sort of conclude this, but it's just like you obviously have to like. There's criticisms. There was sort of things labelled at Ole last season about how like not using his squad to his full sort of capacity. You saw maybe saw a couple of players they burned out last season, being overplayed too much. So maybe this season he's thinking, it's going to be a long season ahead. Use his squad a bit more wisely. However, you've got to think about on the certain days and whatnot. There was an opportunity for United to sort of go into the international break with a bit of confidence, and maybe he did rest he did rest a bit too much, but it. Sometimes we don't know the end results at the end of the season. This could turn out to be, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's we've got no games coming up in the next 2 weeks with the international break, but we did mention that run, Liam. Now, it's tough. It's a very tough run. How do you think we'll fare in that? And do you think it potentially could be make or break for Ole? Do you think this is the period of time where if he doesn't get through this period with some decent results, then unfortunately it may be time for a change at United?
It's difficult to say, I think. I think whatever happens, we can't come out with lots of collateral damage. We've got to, I think as a club and the players and the fans, I think we all have to sort of stick together and unite, obviously, in the stadiums and that, and get behind the team in a positive way, as we have done all this season. And I think the players, they need to step it up. They seem to always do it when Ole's most under pressure, ironically, rather than, throughout the whole season. But I particularly think, there's going to be a lot of big selection calls throughout this time. We can't waste time anymore. The season's still young, over results, who's top? Chelsea? Are they 2 points ahead of us now? Chelsea, I think.
Yes, there will be, yeah.
Yeah, so Chelsea are 2 points ahead of us. Obviously, they played City. I think they played Tottenham, and they played Liverpool. So, fortunately, we're looking at the state of we haven't played all the big teams yet. But obviously, we're going to have to play them over and over and over again. And obviously, we can either see this as a make or break, or we can see this as a point to claw some points back on some of the teams that are ahead of us in the table. We've got to come out of the other side in one piece. That's for sure. We can't be looking at that. That run is the sort of run where if it goes horrendously wrong, you end up about 10 points behind. That can't be the case. We've got to look to try and minimise it as much as possible. So I'd say around, I wouldn't like to think so, but maybe like 6 points behind, something like that is what we've got to try and minimise it to. Or, we've just got to obviously pick up as many points as we can. It's going to be incredibly tough. We put ourselves in this awkward position. We know that at United, even in the good days, where we're winning league titles, we didn't do things the easy way. It's frustrating that we put ourselves in this position. I think if we were a full package of a squad and we had a better midfield, I think we'd have probably won every single game we played in the league. And I think, in all honesty, in the circumstances, we should have been looking to win every. I mean, we've dropped points against Southampton stupidly. Yeah, it's a badly deflected goal, and it was probably a foul on Bruno. But at the end of the day, we've only scored one there. We didn't really create a whole lot. We seemed to be set pieces. Aston Villa was a disgraceful performance where we gifted Villa chance after chance and almost tempted fate on them scoring with the amount that we're giving away. And then obviously Everton, we got a bit. In the end, we were a little bit lucky to escape the point because thankfully Tom Davies didn't just look up and shoot when he's 10 yards out and he tried to square it to Yerry Mina, who was thankfully off the sides. It's going to be an incredibly testing run of games. I've not really seen. I can't remember a time ever when fixtures are piled up like this and it's all the big boys straight away, or one after each other. This will test the mettle and credentials of this side. I personally think while the midfield is still a little bit messy, it's a top four finish this season. I was hoping that with Ronaldo's sign, it would maybe push us to somewhere between a title challenge and almost a fake title challenge where you sort of fade off towards the end. I don't know. It's going to be so tough. It'll be very hard to take when we do fall a lot of points behind. I can tell you that for free, because obviously we've dropped points that we shouldn't have. So, yeah, just got to go in every game, take it one at a time. Leicester, I think Leicester are there for the taking. They'll probably see us there for the taking, but I don't particularly think Leicester are. They haven't seemed to quite piece it together like we did last season. No. And obviously, they centre-back wise, they're a bit all over the place with Vestergaard having to come in because Wesley Fofana was really unlucky in pre-season with a leg break. So we've got to take it one at a time. Them, Atalanta, we have to win that for our Champions League group. Otherwise, we're staring down the barrel. And then Liverpool at home. You've got to play every time we play them. It's like a cup final. It's not because it is a cup final, but it's the way the games get played, the intensity and rate of knots, and how close it is. It's always a one-chance game sort of thing against Liverpool, where the first goal usually takes you on to win the game. So it's going to be incredibly hard. Yeah, I just hope we make it through in one piece and that we're able to come out the other side in a much more positive manner. Because again, it's either an opportunity or it's either going to be an opportunity or it's just going to be, it's one way or the other. I don't see there being too much in between winning and losing in these games. So, yeah, we just got to try and pick up as many points as we can in this run.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, international breaks next. So you never know. It might have come at a good time for us, time to recuperate and forget about what's happened before and the toxicity to go in the ground. And you never know. You never know what will happen in this next one. But it's been a pleasure, you two. Thank you for joining me as per usual. Don't know if we'll be back next week with it being the international break. I think we'll get told if we'll be back. So if we're back next Sunday, we'll be here on next Sunday. If not, we'll be back the week after. But yes. If you haven't already, make sure you go check out all the content that gets put on the local TV. Not just Manchester TV, it gets put onto Leeds TV. These Bristol TV, these loads of them. Make sure you go check out all the content on there because it's not just football that they do on there. There's loads of other articles that gets put up. So thank you for joining and goodbye.